Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Equity Trust Company virtual classroom where we teach investors all throughout the country how to create wealth and preserve wealth using self-directed IRAs, self-directed solo 401ks, and other tax-advantaged investment accounts. Really excited for today's program because in the studio, I have Sean Katona of Simplified Properties. And Sean is a full-time real estate investor. He left corporate America about over a decade ago. And in 2013, that's when he really launched his real estate investor career. But he's been in real estate for well over a decade. And Sean is not only investing in real estate outside of a self-directed IRA, but he's also using a self-directed IRA. He's helped his family members use self-directed IRAs. So we thought it'd be great to have Sean on the program with us today to share with us his wisdom of investing in real estate, not just residential, but also commercial real estate, and talk about some of the strategies and tactics that are working in today's marketplace. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Sean Katona. Sean, if you could start off by telling our audience members just a little bit about yourself, and then, of course, how did you get involved in real estate?
Great to be with you, John. Thanks for that fun intro. So my journey started, I think like a lot of people's did. I was working in corporate America at Microsoft. As a matter of fact, we were integrating Fortune 500 brands all around the Xbox platform and ecosystem. But I was kind of squirreling away some savings. And I had read that book that so many of us do, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so real estate made a lot of sense to me for a lot of reasons. I think many of us are aware of things like cash flow, plus loan pay down, plus appreciation, plus tax advantages, all getting combined and compounded. And so I was very attracted to the asset class. I fumbled my way through my first rental property, which accidentally became a flip about a decade ago. And that kind of got me started, but it also made me realize all the things I didn't know and all the things I didn't know, now as I'm reflecting back. But fast forward today, I'm predominantly focused on commercial real estate. So I still buy fixer-uppers just like I did in the beginning of my career. I do it mostly with friends and family now. And like you talked about, I've invested with my own self-directed IRA, but I've also had a lot of partners over the year use that as a way for them to participate in deals, whether it's private lending against single family homes or owning a piece of an apartment building or a shopping center inside of their portfolio. So all the things that we benefit, like we talked about, the cash flow and the loan pay down and the appreciation and the tax advantages happen inside their IRA. So that can grow tax deferred. And if you compound that over many years, that can turn into a very fun and exciting number for us. So, I've probably done 20 plus million in acquisitions now, a little more than 75 deals. It's everything from single family, fix and flip, turnkey out of state, a couple new construction projects, apartment buildings now. I have a stake in a mobile home park, some self-storage. So I've got, some decent diversification across both asset classes and geographies now. And I'm getting more and more passionate about the passive side of the business where I can have my property managers or another active sponsor doing a lot of the heavy lifting so that I'm not having to go out and do the hand-to-hand combat and deal with the tenants and the termites and the toilets and all the things that, we're familiar with on the real estate investing side.
Thanks so much for joining us, Sean. I think the first topic of conversation that we want to jump into is you had mentioned that you went from residential to commercial, and now you're focusing more on commercial. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit more for our audience on why that is? Was that driven by the market, or was that driven by you and your particular expertise, or what you're trying to gain a particular expertise in?
Man, great question. And I think a lot of friends and family reach out to me kind of asking, hey, I've got some money sitting in either cash or a retirement account. Like, what should I invest in? And it's different for everybody, right? Part of the pain points that I went through was being a small mom and pop. So you're dealing with tenants and termites and toilets and trying to get to economies of scale. And I had, there was one summer where I had about 15 flips going simultaneously across 4 or 5 different contractors. They were all falling behind schedule. They were all hitting me with change orders. Because those projects were taking longer, it was eating into profit margins. And it got to the point where I actually lost 6 figures on 2 back-to-back deals. And I just had to take a step backwards and go, man, is this the business model that I want to be doing? And is it getting me to my goal, which was, it was ultimately passive income, right? I was looking for just predictable certainty coming in where I didn't have to be involved in the day-to-day, and building a fix and flip business wasn't really getting me that. In fact, it was my rental properties that were doing best and my turnkey out of state stuff. And when I looked at the commercial model, the fundamentals were similar, right? I could go in, buy a fixer-upper, force appreciation, add value. I would make money while I was improving it. I'm paying the loan down. So there's a lot of things there. But it ultimately ended up being where I could make a lot more, work a lot less, doing like a handful of quality deals, higher quality, bigger deals versus many, many more deals that were smaller. So I guess the fundamentals were similar, just with an extra comma and more zeros behind it is kind of a fun way to think about it.
And when now, as far as commercial real estate is concerned, is it only shopping centers, or are you also venturing into multifamily?
Yeah, good question. So as a sponsor for deals where I go out and I actively find and I lease up and I manage and I oversee the construction, I'm very focused on shopping centers in Phoenix. I do passively invest with friends who are experts in their craft and in their market. So, we have ownership stakes in pretty significant size apartment buildings, Dallas, St. Louis. We've invested in a mobile home park. We've invested in self-storage. I still got some single family rentals in portfolio, and we've done it both through cash and through our retirement accounts, which is why it's fun to be connecting with you guys, because that's given us good asset class diversification and geographic diversification. So I don't have all my eggs in one basket. I can be really, really good at the one thing that I'm good at. We get insider pocket deals in that specific area that I focus in. And then, I let, the partners that I invest with do what they do best. And so I think that model has worked well for us.
That's interesting, Sean. So I want to drill down into, it sounds like you have assets really all across the country. And just for our viewers, where's your home base? Where's your home marketplace?
Yeah, I live in Huntington Beach. I'm originally from Seattle. But, what I was finding is in Orange County, it's the land of the four caps or the sub four caps. And so you're barely beating inflation. And when you think about your debt coverage, I wasn't finding super compelling returns in my backyard. So I started looking in markets where I could stretch my cash a little bit further and my investors' cash a little bit further, where it was a landlord-friendly state, where we're seeing job growth, where we're seeing employers move. So you hear about those places, right? The Floridas and the Texases and the Arizonas, and kind of the Sun Belt is just on fire right now. And so if I can find fixer-upper deals that are already in the path of progress, I'm kind of getting these compounded, supercharged returns. And I'm willing to jump on an airplane and go to those markets, every other month to see those deals.
And so I know what all of our viewers are asking, and I'm asking the same question. See, as a part-time investor, I'm focusing on the Cleveland, Ohio market. That's where our company headquarters is located. That's where I'm sitting right now in our studio in Cleveland, Ohio. And so I'm looking for deals in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm looking for single family properties. That's where I'm as an investor. I haven't ventured into the commercial real estate realm yet, but I talk to a lot of investors that tell me that, John, you should really start looking at this. And I know that's not of interest to you right now. You're a landlord, you do private loans, you focus on single family. But if you don't start focusing on some of these other asset classes, you might be missing out on some incredible opportunities. So I know I'm curious, and I know a lot of my viewers are curious as well. So how do you connect? Are you connecting with investors in those local markets that are helping to bring you into the deal? Are you finding it and then finding someone that's boots on the ground? Can you talk a little bit about sort of the networking that has to be done in order to put a deal together like that, where you're investing across state lines?
Yeah, so I could talk about it kind of from two angles, because I wear both hats, right? I wear the active investor, deal sponsor, a syndicator, where I'm going out and finding those deals. And then my friends and family invest alongside us in those projects. And so, I bring them an interesting deal in Phoenix, and, they raise their hands, kind of first come, first serve. Hey, Sean, I love this deal. I know, like, and trust you. I like the fundamentals. I see, what's happening in Phoenix, and I'd love to be part of it. And so they can invest in their retirement accounts or with their cash, and, regardless of where they're at. So, a lot of my investors are in California, and they see the returns in markets like Arizona being nearly double what they could get in their backyard. And they go, look, Sean's doing some of the work, the boots on the ground, the hand-to-hand combat, if you will, so that they can just enjoy those passive returns. On the flip side, I'm in that boat as well. So I'm going, hey, I see markets like Cleveland where we do see some great opportunities to get good cap rates or good cash on cash returns. And we can get a little bit of that market arbitrage almost. Like, I like where I live, but I don't think it's the juiciest market from a return on investment standpoint. I don't think it's very landlord friendly in California. Like, it's been a market that appreciates pretty well, but from a cash flow standpoint, it's pretty abysmal. And so I've urged some of my friends and family to take a look at their portfolio and do an audit of that and say, some of them are sitting on $500,000 of equity and they're not making a 1% return on it. So you're getting eroded by inflation. You're not even keeping up with inflation. So looking at some of those other asset classes, other markets, I think is worthwhile for everyone to be doing.
So for our viewers, Sean, you mentioned the Cleveland market, which I appreciate that. You mentioned the Phoenix market. What other markets are you looking at right now? And a second part to that question is, what do you look for in that market? Can you give our viewers maybe some of the performance indicators, some of the data that you might be looking at to make the decision to enter into that market?
Yeah, and I mentioned a couple of them briefly, right? I like to see a landlord-friendly state. I've been dealing with a lot of shenanigans up in Washington with tenants, and the eviction moratoriums. And, that's just a place where it's very hard to get some things done as a landlord if you've got folks who aren't paying their rent or cooperating. I like to see good job growth. That is a big driver of rents. When it comes to retail, we want to see good rooftop density and demand. So where the jobs are where the people are, and then that can support, all the retailers of the world or the fast food or those other types of businesses that rely on foot traffic, on drive-by traffic, on having the disposable income to go out to, the restaurant or the salon or whatever it is that you're going to. So those are the couple of the big indicators. When I was doing more on the residential side, I would think a lot about the price to rent ratio. And so if you look at that in California versus Texas, very, very different. What someone could buy a house for and mortgage versus what they're paying in rent, you can get some very favorable returns in other places. So those are a couple of the big ones. Some of those economic indicators, probably jobs are my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so we covered that, what to look for in different marketplaces, where some of those markets are. And of course, I respect, there's proprietary information there. You have a lot of competitors out there, so you want to make sure you stay ahead of the curve. So the next part that I want to move into, Sean, is when you look at, let's move to the residential side. When you look at a cash flowing asset, residential property, what are you looking for? Now, you mentioned cap rate there, or rent multiplier, but can you drill down for our audience kind of the financial aspects of a cash flowing rental property, what you would desire as an investor? Or if you're somebody, you had mentioned turnkey and investing out of state. If you're a turnkey investor, you can add that in as well. What would you want to be looking for?
Yeah. So a really rough way to look at it is kind of a 1% rule. I liked it when, if I bought a house for 100,000, it's renting for $1,000 a month. And if that was the case, I was probably making some good cash flow, but then I would punch that into a calculator and really see, hey, my rents minus my loan payments and all the expenses of the building, like what's my cash on cash look like? That's probably my most important indicator. Like, how far can I stretch my dollar? And so that's my favorite metric. When I'm doing value add, and this is both on the single family side and commercial, I look for significant upside. So that would allow me to go buy a rental, renovate it, rent it, refinance it, and pull out some, if not all, of my initial down payment, which would allow us a scenario where we could go out and repeat it over and over and over again. And so there's a few places out there that have popularized that with the term called BRRRR, right? Buy it, renovate it, rent it, refinance, repeat it over and over and over again. And that's very similar to what I do in commercial now. So I find a fixer upper asset, I renovate it, I increase the net operating income, or you tighten up expenses, because the value of a commercial building is so tightly tied to net operating income. You double the income, you can nearly double the value of the building in a lot of cases, and that's what we've been able to produce on commercial. So I got a little off your question there, like, but those fundamentals are similar in both asset classes that we look for, and for me, value add has become such an important part of what I buy and why, because it can really mitigate some of those risks and create bigger spreads and margins, so we get great cash on cash return. Or if we had to lower rents, we've still got good spread and good margin there.
And I appreciate you saying that, Sean, because we have viewers from all across the country. We have clients in all 50 states, as you may know, because you work with a lot of self-directed IRA investors and hear the name Equity Trust quite frequently. And you'll find that we have investors that want to stay focused on their local market. They want to use their IRAs, their solo 401ks, their HSAs, their other tax advantage investment accounts, and they only want to invest in their own backyard. And admittedly, again, I am one of those people. And, I hope that there will come a day where I'll diversify and I'll look across various asset classes within real estate, but that's where I'm at right now. On the other side, we have investors from California, for example, that are looking to use their retirement plans to invest in other markets because of exactly what you just spelled out there, which is the cash on cash doesn't make sense. And with a self-directed IRA, you, of course, as you may know, Sean, most people are buying real estate as a cash buyer with a self-directed IRA or solo 401k. They're not taking on a loan, because you'll find that with financing in an IRA, it can be a little bit more challenging. So what I wanted to ask you, and for all of our viewers' sake as well, is for somebody that is looking to invest in turnkey assets, for example, somebody in California or in a market like California, maybe somebody from Denver or upstate Washington. Let's look at individuals like that. Those particular individuals, what do they want to look for in turnkey real estate, if that's what they want to accomplish? What do they look for in the operator? And then what do they also look for in the actual asset itself? Because I think as a turnkey investor, we have to be looking at both the operator and the asset when we're investing across state lines, because I would not be able to, I can manage my properties here in Cleveland, but if I bought an asset, let's say in Indianapolis, Indiana, or Pittsburgh or Rochester, New York, I would have a really difficult time trying to manage that asset on my own. I would need a property management company. I would need an operator, boots on the ground, to help me with that. So can you address that question for our audience, which is what to look for in an operator and what to look for in the asset?
Yeah, great questions. So everything in my portfolio now is third-party property managed, and it wasn't always that way. I think some of the most important things to think about are obviously track record, right? Like, can they do what they say they're going to do? They're not all made equal. You'd probably interview 50 property managers and find 2 or 3 that are really exceptional. And so it's a scary statistic if you go out there and you only talk to 5 or 10, you just don't know. I would look for referrals from people you know and trust who've got multiple properties. The company that we use to manage our Texas portfolio has thousands and thousands and thousands of units. And so they're able to realize some economies of scale that a mom and pop investor can't. They've got people on payroll, they've got deep vendor relationships. And so those are important, because I've heard the horror stories from other folks who've done turnkey investments, and they're just like, hey, I've got consistent vacancy, this thing's falling apart. I've always been a fan of being near good school districts, because I think those are always going to be desirable areas and assets. And then, if I can get newer bones, newer construction, that's always more desirable. So your roofs aren't falling apart, and your plumbing and your electrical, and a lot of the turnkey providers will go out there, buy a fixer-upper, really dial it in, make it look good, essentially warranty the work. They become the property management company, and then they turn around and sell it to someone like us who just wants to write a check and handle it. So really, really vet those property managers. But you brought up another really interesting point, John, is do I want to self-manage, and do people want to self-manage? And the reason that I went away from that is because it started to become an opportunity cost debate. And my time spent dealing with tenants and termites and toilets was preventing me from buying another deal, or going out and raising more capital, or finding another shopping center. And so it got to the point where we just said, hey, let's push this all off. This is a relatively low cost, low return activity to self-manage. And if I can pay someone 5-10% of my rents while I go find another 6 or 7 figure deal, that's time much better spent. Or, if you're a successful doctor or dentist, attorney, whatever it is, you're probably better off working with however many more clients you can work with to increase your income. And then you can buy 2 or 3 more assets or participate in 2 or 3 more commercial syndication deals. So that's a personal preference thing. It's like you talked about investing out of state. It's kind of a mindset, but as we sat down and looked at that, it felt like we were leaving money on the table by self-managing.
And Sean, but when you started your first deal, you managed the property, right? That's how you got your start.
Yeah. And a lot of lessons learned the hard way. And I would, tell people I didn't know all the things I didn't know, but you know what? It got me in the game and it got me going. And so I'd rather see someone do that than not. I would say, have a second set of eyes, review any deal, have a mentor, have a coach, have a lender, like someone who can really poke holes in it. Because if you're going out and you're doing your first deal without any sort of training or experience, like there are a lot of things that can come up. And that concept of you don't know all the things you don't know.
And I think that's great for our audience. I understand there's folks on today's program that are already involved in real estate. They're very active, but there's also people that haven't done their first deal. And I think it's really important to broadcast and message that, doing your first deal, having the ability to say, hey, I've worked on managing properties. I understand now better what questions to ask when I'm interviewing a property manager. Because let's face it, if we've never managed on our own, we're going to have a difficult time probably interviewing those individuals. Now, if you haven't managed real estate and you never plan on doing that, that's okay. I think you brought up a great point, Sean, which is get referrals, ask people. And if you can get referrals and ask people, then you can trust that particular type of information. So I want to make sure I message that out to all of our attendees on today's program. All right. Last thing that I want to ask you, Sean, is what's the next venture for you? I know you said that you want to get more involved, more shopping centers, but sort of what is that long-term vision for you? Do you plan on unwinding real estate eventually, longer term down the road? What is that next big venture for you going forward?
Yeah, that's a fun question, John. So I'm in the process of a little bit of portfolio cleanup right now. So I'm selling off some of my residential like legacy deals that I collected house flipping over the years. I'm basically exiting Washington, and I'll probably double down on more fixer-upper shopping centers in Phoenix because I'm making more money in that market and that asset class by a wide margin than anything else that I invest in. It's a little bit of a contrarian play right now, right? Retail, you read these headlines that could give you the willies if you don't really understand the business model and if you're investing in malls from the 80s. But the stuff that I invest in is daily needs. It's things that are Amazon or internet resistant. It's withstood the pandemic pretty well. And so, you think about nail salons or dog groomers or dance or, a school for the kids, things that, we're still going to be using those for the foreseeable future. And those have me very excited. I think what I've done is methodically built my portfolio safely, little by little, to the point where I can go, all right, we can do 3, 4, 5x the amount of deals. So I'm getting better access to deals through brokers now because there's a resume and a track record there. We're seeing pocket listings now. I'm, expanding to a wider group of friends and family that I have relationships with and saying, hey guys, if you want to park some of your portfolio into this asset class in this market, we're historically seeing double-digit returns consistently here. And that's better than what I've seen in some of the other things that I've invested in. So I'm not telling anyone what to do with their money, but I just had no awareness that this world even existed, before being years and years into real estate. So I wish someone had kind of taken me aside, shook me and said, hey, take a look at commercial, take a look at multifamily, take a look at some of the bigger deals with better economies of scale. We're getting all the same benefits of real estate, right? Someone's paying down the loan. Our tenants are helping with that. We're bumping rents every year. We are getting forced appreciation by buying value add deals, and we're getting the tax advantages that come along with real estate, just at a much bigger and bigger scale. And so John gets his piece, Sean gets his piece, our brothers and our sisters and our mothers can all participate in that same benefit, but without having to do any of the actual hands-on management. And that's just what makes commercial such a unique and special platform. And like we talked about, people can do that with cash. They can do it inside their retirement accounts. I estimate that about half of my investors are doing so from within their self-directed IRAs. They're getting those tax advantages, and they're putting that money to work in asset classes that personally I feel like have more certainty and more predictability than the stock market, plus all those profit centers being combined. So those are the things that I think about and that get me excited and that keep me doubling down on real estate now.
Yeah, I can tell, Sean, you're incredibly passionate about the commercial real estate, and I have no doubt in my mind that you'll continue to have success in that arena, as you described. I do actually have one last question, and I always like to ask this question to our folks that come into our virtual classroom, because I think it helps myself, of course, and it helps a lot of our audience understand where to get access to information and education. And we know that it's challenging to get access to good information and education. Someone like yourself, who gotten into real estate just over a decade ago and has had a tremendous amount of success, I'd imagine that you plug into a lot of resources and educational forums. What are some of the top maybe online forums that you plug into, books, courses? Do you have any recommendations for our audience in terms of where they can get more education, whether it's on residential or commercial real estate investing?
Man, great question. So there's kind of a whole range, I guess you could say. Big fan of books. So I'm gobbling up Audibles every time I'm on the bike or out running. And a couple of my personal favorites, if you haven't read it, obviously check out Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think Gary Keller did a really good one called The One Thing. There's also another one he has called The Millionaire Real Estate Investor that I thought was excellent. I'm also a member of a couple of different mastermind groups. I don't know if I'd suggest that for a passive or a part-time investor, but because of the nature of my business, it makes a lot of sense to surround myself with other millionaire real estate investors who are doing this business at a high level. What are you doing for deal flow? How are you handling your investor management? What are you doing for asset management? How are you handling your property management? So all those things help me kind of raise the game a little bit. And look, those aren't cheap, but I'm getting the collective experience of hundreds and hundreds of years of real estate wisdom and best practices and lessons learned the hard way. So I try and surround myself with really, really successful investors and consistently be the dumbest, brokest guy in the room. And so those are things that I very thoughtfully seek out. And then there's just so many amazing resources. I'm all over YouTube now. I'm on podcasts a lot. I'm reading the articles. I've actually been spending a lot of time on Clubhouse lately, which is all the rage. And so in real time, you're able to drop in and have conversations with other active or passive investors and hear about, what they're doing and how they're doing it. And, that's like a networking conference on steroids that you can do in your PJs from anywhere you've got, cell phone connectivity. So pretty wild new platform that's just exploding in growth right now.
Sean, so I had to, you saw my ears probably perk up there. Can you say that again? What is the name of this website?
So Clubhouse is the name of the app. And it's like drop-in audio. So imagine, you're joining a conference call that's available to the public, and people can jump in and just listen passively, or they can raise their hand, jump on stage as a panelist or a presenter. We've done things like fire rounds. I've asked, a lot of commercial brokers, hey, what are you doing to get listings right now? Or what are you doing to fill up vacancy right now? Other syndicators, what are you doing to find your best deals right now? And so almost like a real-time mastermind, but it could be, used to talk about whatever you want. You could be talking sports, you could be talking politics, religion, you name it. Or I tend to focus on the real estate investing rooms a lot.
It's a great resource. First time I've ever heard of that. I'm surprised that I haven't heard of it. So I really appreciate it. And I also appreciate you bringing up masterminds. And yes, I would say for somebody that's just getting started in a part-time fashion, might not be the best first step. But I will mention there are real estate investor associations all across the country. A lot of them right now are handling all of their meetings, which are networking type meetings and educational type meetings via Zoom or other digital platforms. So in your local market, you could search REIA, just do an internet search of real estate investor associations, and you should be able to find a local group that you can join. I'm a member of my local real estate investor association here in Cleveland, Ohio, and I've gotten an incredible amount of value out of the relationships. In fact, about a year ago, I bought a property from an investor that I met at one of the REIA meetings. You know, I told them exactly what I was looking for. They were a wholesaler, so they were bird dogging properties, and you know, it was a perfect match. It made sense for me at that time, and that was back in March of 2020, and that asset's cash flowing at $1,500 a month right now. So there's a ton of great opportunities there. And again, I appreciate you, Sean, bringing up the concept of the mastermind. That might be kind of a next step for somebody that is really trying to supercharge their real estate business. So it looks like we are just about out of time here, so we'll start to wrap up. Again, Sean, really appreciate you being on today's program. For all of our viewers out here that didn't hear already, this is Sean Katona. I hope I pronounced that properly, like Daytona. That's how I remembered it, Katona. And Sean is from Simplified Properties. So you can check out Sean on simplifiedproperties.com. Also, he has a YouTube channel, an Instagram channel, Facebook. So look him up on Facebook, Simplified Properties. And I'm sure you'll find his other podcasts and his other educational forums. But with that being said, Sean, any parting words with our viewers today?
Hey, appreciate being on here, John. I think there's so much that we could cover and dive into in a lot deeper detail, but would encourage, everybody out there just to get in the game. There are no perfect deals. There's no perfect markets. There's no perfect operators. So I think, figure out how to push through, any analysis paralysis, partnering, joint venturing, finding coaches, finding mentors who'd figured it out already really gave me a lot of confidence and certainty that I didn't have in the beginning. So I would encourage, finding somebody that you can really get close with, or a group or an organization. And like you talked about with masterminds, I've done that consistently throughout my decade of investing. It's just made an absolute world of difference. I think that's kind of an insurance policy and a way to accelerate and put a little gasoline on the fire. So many good nuggets, and it was a lot of fun to cover some ground with you today.
Outstanding. Again, thank you so much, Sean. To all of our viewers and audience members listening, thank you so much for joining us here in the Equity Trust Virtual Classroom. Again, I'm John Bowens. And for those of you, again, that would like to check out Sean and his group, again, Instagram, Facebook, Simplified Properties, you can check them out online. And as always, as we sign off with, keep leveraging compounding interest in the absence of taxation. We'll see you next time, everybody. Have a good day.